You know, it's a strange thing to grow old. You spend your whole life teaching people how to find their voice, yet you never expect that silence will be the one thing that follows you home. All my life, I stood in front of classrooms, thousands of students, countless lessons, faces that changed every semester, but the same burning curiosity in their eyes. And somehow, in that sea of voices, there was always one who never used his. I taught thousands of students. I found myself whispering yesterday, but one of them never said a single word, not even once. 40 years I carried that memory, quietly, lightly, without meaning. I never questioned it, never wondered why, never imagined there was anything more to the silence of a boy sitting in the back row until yesterday, when a letter arrived. A plain white envelope slipped under my door. No name, no stamps, no return address. Only one line written on the front, "For the professor who noticed." And in that moment, I felt something inside me shift. A stirring, a soft ache, as if a door I had once walked past without seeing had suddenly creaked open. These days I don't get much mail bills, advertisements, nothing meaningful, so a letter addressed personally to me felt almost foreign, almost intrusive, almost dangerous. You see, I'm not the man I used to be, not the professor students once lined up to speak with after class, not the energetic mentor with chalk-stained sleeves and too much enthusiasm. Now I'm retired, and the days move slower than they should. I wake up earlier than I want, I eat less than I used to, and I speak only when I must. The world feels young, fast, loud, and I feel forgotten by the very place I dedicated my life to. What I miss most isn't the teaching, it's the noise, the murmurs before class, the shuffling of notebooks, the sudden spark in a student's eye when something finally made sense. That electricity, that feeling of purpose, is gone now. So when that envelope arrived, my first instinct was disbelief. My second was fear. And my third was a strange, fragile hope I hadn't felt in years. I sat down at my old wooden desk, the same one I graded papers on for decades, and held the envelope between my fingers. The paper felt warm, as if it had been carried for a long time, held close, protected. I opened it carefully, almost nervously. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten, the ink slightly shaky, the curves of each letter gentle, deliberate. And at the top, the first line read, "You won't remember me." I was the quiet boy in the back row, the one who never spoke. My heart stilled because, yes, I did remember. Not his name, not his work, not his grades, just his silence. A silence I mistook for apathy. A silence I never questioned. A silence I never once tried to understand. And in that moment, the past, the version of me who thought he understood his students, began to crumble. Because this letter, this simple, handwritten letter, was about to change everything I thought I knew about teaching and about myself. My eyes drifted away from the letter for a moment, but my mind, it drifted back 40 years. It's strange how memories you think are gone, memories you never valued, suddenly return with the weight of a lifetime. I tried to picture him, the boy in the back row, shy, head always down, books neatly stacked in front of him as if they were a shield. He never raised his hand, never joined group discussions, never laughed when the class erupted at one of my awkward jokes. I remember thinking, he doesn't care. He's not trying. He's just waiting to leave. I was wrong. But back then, I had no idea how wrong. A soft regret settled in my chest as I stared at that letter, an ache I hadn't felt in decades. And then, as if the letter had quietly knocked on the door of an old memory. One moment suddenly pushed through the fog, a rainy day. I remember the sound before anything else, rain tapping against the windows like small, restless fingers. Most students left early. The classroom felt emptier than usual. Soft, echoing, blue. He stayed behind, though. Everyone else had rushed out, but he remained seated, staring at the water streaming down the glass. I walked over and said something small, something gentle, something I forgot the moment after I said it, but he never did. "You don't have to speak," I had told him quietly. "You don't have to say a single word, but I want you to know. I see you." I didn't say it because I was wise or compassionate or intuitive. I said it because I saw a sad young boy sitting alone in a room that felt too big for him, and because sometimes teachers say things without realizing they're planting seeds. He never reacted, not even a nod. He just gathered his books and walked out into the rain. I never thought about that moment again. Until now, my hands trembled slightly as I read the next lines of the letter. He wrote, "I wasn't silent because I didn't care. I was silent because I couldn't speak. The words softened me, broke me, opened something I didn't know was still fragile." He explained everything, the stutter that froze him, the anxiety that tightened around his throat like invisible hands, the fear of judgment so strong that even saying his own name around others felt impossible. "My silence wasn't disrespect," he wrote. "It was survival." I felt my breath catch in my throat. 40 years of thinking he didn't care, when all that time he was fighting a battle I never saw. And then came the line, a line I will remember until my last breath. Your words, "I see you," were the only thing that kept me going. I closed my eyes, not because I was sad, but because I felt something inside me bend. Regret, gratitude, a mix only age can truly understand. I leaned back in my chair, the letter resting in my hands like something fragile, something warm, something that had traveled a long way to find me. The next part of the letter felt heavier, not sad heavy, human heavy. He wrote about his life, but not the way people usually do. Not accomplishments, not achievements, just small, quiet truths. He said he finished school slowly, one class at a time. He avoided presentations, avoided crowds, avoided anything that forced words out of him, but still, he kept going. He said that every time he felt like disappearing, every time he felt completely invisible, he remembered that rainy afternoon and a professor who told him he was seen. It wasn't a speech, it wasn't a lesson, it wasn't even an intentional moment of guidance. It was one sentence, one warm sentence on a cold, wet day. "You don't have to speak to be heard." He said he carried those words like a small lantern through every dark corner of his youth. Slowly, years later, he found therapy, a gentle therapist who worked with him patiently, someone who didn't push him, just helped him take tiny steps toward using his voice. He wrote, "It took me 10 years to say my first sentence in front of a stranger. 10 years I felt something in my chest tighten, a sadness, but also a strange pride for a boy I never truly knew." He said he found a job that didn't require much speaking, a library assistant. A quiet place, he wrote, where silence was not a flaw but a natural part of the day. He found comfort there. Books became his companions, stories became his language, and then slowly, life opened for him. A marriage, children, a small, warm family. He wrote that his daughter speaks for him in places he still struggles to find words, and he loves her for it. I paused there because the next lines were written differently, the handwriting softer, slower. He wrote, "I am writing to you now because time is no longer a promise for me." My breath stilled. He explained he had fallen seriously ill, a condition that came quietly, the way winter creeps into autumn. He didn't know how long he had. He didn't know if tomorrow would come with strength or weakness. And so he wrote to me, not for closure, not for sympathy, but for gratitude. He said, "You saved me without knowing. You kept me alive long enough to become someone I never thought I could be." My hands shook as I read that I had spent years wondering if anything I did as a professor truly mattered, if students remembered me, if I left any kind of mark. And here was a man, silent for decades, telling me I saved his life with a moment I barely remembered. Then, at the bottom of the page, a final line. "If you would like to meet me, I'll be at the old cafe behind the library. It's where I used to sit alone after your classes." No pressure, no urgency, just an invitation. Gentle, open, uncertain. A bridge built across 40 years of silence. I placed the letter on the table and felt the weight of time settle on my shoulders. I sat there for a long while, longer than I cared to admit, just staring at that final line. An invitation, 40 years late, yet perfectly on time. But with the invitation came something else, an emotion I hadn't felt in years. Fear, not the sharp kind, not the kind that knocks the air out of your lungs. No, this was the quiet kind of fear, the kind that creeps in when you're old and everything feels heavier than it should. Should I go? What if I disappointed him? What if he arrived and realized I wasn't the man he remembered? What if my words meant more to him than I was prepared to accept? And an even deeper fear whispered something uncomfortable. What if he didn't come at all? What if I reached the cafe and sat there alone, waiting for someone who might not be strong enough to show up? Age does strange things to the heart. It softens some parts, hardens others, and confuses the rest. But even with all my hesitation, my uncertainty, my trembling hands, there was something inside me that felt like it was waking up from a long sleep. Purpose. It had been years since I felt it. Years since I felt needed, seen, useful. So the next morning I put on my best coat, the one I used to wear on graduation days, and I walked slowly toward that old cafe behind the library. I hadn't been there in decades. The moment I stepped in, the memories wrapped around me. The smell of old wood, the faint scent of roasted coffee, the soft clinking of spoons inside empty cups. And then, there he was, sitting at a corner table, hands folded, back straight. Older, yes, but unmistakably him. When his eyes lifted and met mine, I saw something I had not seen in a very long time. Recognition, warm, honest, unforced recognition. He smiled first, not the shy, trembling smile of a boy hiding from the world, but the calm, steady smile of a man who had come to make peace. "You came," he said, and I froze. His voice, steady, clear, gentle, filled the space between us. For the first time in 40 years, he spoke to me without fear gripping his throat. I sat down across from him, feeling a strange mixture of pride and disbelief. "You found your voice," I whispered. He laughed softly. "A little late," he said, "but I found it." The way he spoke, slow, thoughtful, unhurried, felt like listening to someone who had rehearsed for decades, but finally felt brave enough to step on stage. He told me about therapy, about small victories, ordering a meal aloud, saying his name clearly, reading stories to his children. He said, Your words didn't fix me. They gave me permission to try. I felt something warm settle inside my chest. Not pride, not superiority, connection. The quiet, rare kind that only happens when two lives intersect in exactly the right moment. He reached into his coat pocket, his hands trembling just slightly. Not from fear, but from the weight of what he was about to give me. "I brought you something," he said softly. He placed a small, old notebook on the table. The cover was worn, edges frayed, pages softened by years of being opened and closed. "This is for you." I hesitated before touching it. There was something sacred about it, as if the moment itself deserved a kind of silence. When I finally opened it, I felt my breath catch every page, filled with words, notes, speeches, letters, reflections, all written by the boy who once sat silently in my classroom. "These are all the talks I gave," he explained. "I started speaking to children who struggled like I did. Little by little, I found my courage, and I wanted to pass it on." I turned the pages slowly. Each one felt like witnessing a life rebuilt word by word. "These are my words now," he said, "because once I didn't have any." There was a soft pride in his voice, not loud, not boastful, just real. We talked for hours about life, about fear, about the fragile, unpredictable ways people heal. He told me he wasn't afraid of what was coming, not anymore. "I just didn't want to leave," he said, "without telling you that you mattered." That sentence, that simple human sentence, landed deep inside me. All those years I thought I'd been forgotten. All those years I wondered if teaching had been worth it, if any of it made a difference. And here he was. A man who had carried one sentence of mine like a small light through the darkness of his youth. As the sun began to set, he stood up slowly. "I should go," he said. "I get tired faster now." I rose with him, but he placed a hand on my arm gently. "You didn't just teach me," he said. "You kept me alive long enough to become someone I'm finally proud of." I don't remember what I replied. I don't think I said anything profound. I just nodded. The kind of nod that comes from a place too full for words. He walked toward the door. The light from outside traced his silhouette, older, frailer, yet carrying the unmistakable posture of someone at peace. Before stepping out, he looked back one last time. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible." And then he was gone. I sat there for a long while afterward, not sad, not broken, just full. When I finally returned home, I placed his notebook on my desk, the same desk where I had once graded his assignments without truly knowing who he was. For the first time in years, I felt something I thought I had lost forever: purpose. A quiet reminder that the impact of a life is not measured in achievements or recognition, but in the gentle footprints we leave on someone else's path. Teaching didn't end when I retired. It lived on, in people like him, in stories like his, in moments I had forgotten, but others never did. And now when I sit alone in my quiet little home, I sometimes whisper to myself, maybe I didn't change the world, but I helped someone find theirs. And truthfully, that is enough.